Good morning, Fantasy. It is Tuesday, March 8th, and we have a fun little episode for you guys today. It's going to be a shorter one. I want to make this short and consumable and shareable episode for you guys today, talking about the Calvin Ridley situation. In case you're living under a rock or didn't check your phone today at all, or yesterday, sorry, it's Monday's news. But today we're going to be talking about the Calvin Ridley situation. In case you guys didn't know, elite young wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley, sat out a large portion of the fantasy football season. Why did I say fantasy football season? NFL season last year due to mental health problems. He took a step away from football, took his time to himself and get himself back in, the proper mental space to play football again, which is totally fine. I think a lot of players should be encouraged to do so if they're ever having mental health issues. I really appreciate Calvin going out there and, destigmatizing mental health. I think it's great. But it turns out that he bet on NFL games. And apparently it's come out that he had like an 8-game parlay or something. And on one of the bets, he bet a $1,500 bet. He said on Twitter, he bet no more than $1,500 on the Atlanta Falcons in that parlay. So he was betting on NFL games, which obviously is a huge no-no. I mean, we see what happened to Pete Rose in the MLB. He's been blackballed by the league pretty much forever, blacklisted from the Hall of Fame, even though he completely deserves to be in the game. In the Hall of Fame. One of the best hitters of all time, one of the best baseball players of all time. Calvin Ridley is no Pete Rose. He's a very good NFL wide receiver, but he's nowhere near the of legend that Pete Rose accomplished over his career. But Calvin Ridley has been suspended through at least the entire 2022 NFL regular season, which is a huge blow to not only his actual on-field stock, but also for his fantasy football stock. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, have him on Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters, banking on him coming back next season. I mean, this guy was a top 3 Dynasty wide receiver coming into this year. Some people have him as a regular season wide receiver 1 in redraft. Calvin really was poised for a huge year, and then he stepped aside and got in trouble with his gambling stuff. It's really unclear what his future looks like. The roster for the Atlanta Falcons was already pretty murky as is as far as skill positions goes on the roster, with Cordell Patterson being a free agent, Russell Gage being a free agent. Their number one wide receiver locked up to come back next year is Olamide Zaccheaus. So they have basically no weapons. Kyle Pitts, though. So Kyle Pitts is basically the team's wide receiver 1. This is actually good news for Kyle Pitts, low key. I mean, he's going to get a lot more targets guaranteed there moving forward. I mean, he's going to get a lot more, focus from defensive backs and defensive coordinators there still. But I mean, the Falcons are kind of screwed with this whole Calvin Ridley situation because, I mean, you can't really cut him for this. It wasn't that bad of a terrible move on his end. I don't think he's a stupid person or anything like that. Well, the move is a bit boneheaded on his part. Obviously, I do think that he still deserves to play in the NFL long term. I think it's quite frankly, it's ridiculous that the NFL is this harsh with this punishment when these NFL players such as like Ray Rice and all these other players who are known domestic abusers and do these terrible things to their partners and their children get suspended like 2 games, 4 games. Greg Hardy comes to mind. Suspension, I believe it was 10 games, cut down to 4 or 2 after an appeal. He bet on a game. Sure, really dumb to do. He didn't even play in the game. I'm sure they lost the game anyway because the Falcons were a bad team last year. I don't think that is worth at all punishing an entire year suspension. But, as people say on Twitter, the shield, the NFL logo comes first above all. It's the integrity of the game, and it's all the NFL ever cares about. So what does it look like for fantasy going forward in Dynasty? I think buy Calvin Ridley for really cheap right now. You probably can get him for a 3rd-round pick, like a 2023 third. I'm buying him at that price all day long for a few reasons. I know when he comes back, he'll already be 28 or 29 years old, and I know it's kind of murky with his future situation, but a player that talented like Calvin Ridley, who's not gone full crazy like Antonio Brown used to, I'm buying him for cheap, man. He's a great young talent still. He has plenty of years left, especially with coming out of 2 seasons after he gets back of not playing really. His leg will be super fresh. Might be a little rusty when he comes back, but I feel very confident in his talent going forward. I would definitely be sending out some low buy trade offers for him moving forward. Kyle Pitts gets a bump up in his stock. Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus, if Cordell Patterson returns, Patterson's another lock for a stud fantasy season. I think it makes sense for the Atlanta Falcons to bring him back this year or next year, especially with Ridley now out. So if you're a dynasty contender, I'd also be very interested in signing Cordell Patterson as well. But that's about all I really have for y'all today. Honestly, I wanted to make this a short episode, a shareable episode for you guys to, get filled in on the Calvin Ridley news. Suspended for the entire 2022 NFL season for gambling on NFL games. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments and let me know on Twitter. Hit me up, shoot me a DM, and let me know what you thought about this breakdown. Calvin Ridley, what are you doing with him in Dynasty? You buying, you selling, you holding? I'm personally holding on or buying. I'm not selling him for dirt cheap because he's too talented of a player. I'll throw him in my IR and just let him sit there for a year. It's not that big of a deal to me, especially in deeper roster leagues. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day, everybody.